Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So the last time we spoke, I was trying to decide what I was going to use in my Frazier Price palette box. I got this for my birthday, and there's something about this charming little box that makes you kind of agonize over picking your palette for it. And I don't really know why, but I'm all of a sudden forced to make decisions because I can't fit everything in the box. Although I can say that if you look at my video I did reviewing this cute little box, I did find a lot of ways to add so many more colors. So I don't necessarily just have room for these. I could probably add tons and tons more colors, but it got me thinking, how many colors do I really need, and what do I want to put in my box? So here we go. So if you watched the one on the yellows, I have a video linked below, and we went through all of these fabulous yellows and tried to decide which lemon yellow, which yellows I should put in the palette. Well, ultimately, it came down to Daniel Smith's Hansa Yellow, Schmincke's Lemon Yellow, and Sennelier Lemon Yellow, which I decided on Sennelier. I just really love the color, and it's just beautiful. It never lets me down, and it mixes so well, as you're going to see today when I pick a blue. As far as these go, when it comes to nickel azo, I love so many of them, to tell you the truth. There's a nickel azo I have, the PY150, in 2 different brands, and I like them both. But I still think that for flexibility, the Daniel Smith nickel azo is going to win out on this because I use it a lot. It's tried and true, and I feel like it never lets me down. So when it comes to nickel azo, I think that Daniel Smith might have a win. Now, what you can tell me though is, does nickel azo by Daniel Smith actually remain light fast, or is there something I should be watching out for when it comes to light fast? Because I feel like sometimes some of these brands say they're light fast, and then we see these individual tests go off and they are in fact not, and that makes me very curious. So, but I'm still sticking with my choice for now, and that is the Daniel Smith nickel azo, which I have right in here. Okay, so we have 2 yellows so far, but we need a third. The third one is a warm yellow other than nickel azo, because nickel azo, as you will see in upcoming tests, it does not mix with every color perfectly. And that leaves me with cad yellow or Hansa yellow, right? So the Daniel Smith Hansa yellow, of course, is a great choice, but I tend to be reaching for the Schmincke cad yellow way more. I feel like it's got more versatility, and it really has not let me down. Very similar to that would be Aquarius yellow from Roman Schmal. I really love that one, just as I love their nickel azo. It's a beautiful color. It's not that Daniel Smith beats it out. I'm just a lot more used to working with Daniel Smith's nickel azo, and they are slightly different. Not much, but slightly different. The Aquarius yellow would be a great choice for a cad yellow or a permanent yellow light. It just depends on what you're looking for here. But I'm going to go with Schmincke's cad yellow for my second choice, because I feel like, let me grab it here. Again, it's tried and true, tested, and I love the color of it. It never lets me down, and it's definitely a yellow that I can always use in my palette and be really happy with it. So far, Sennelier, Lemon, Schmincke, Cad Yellow, and the Nickel Azo by Daniel Smith. And those have won my first 3 slots in my Frazier Price. So now let's look at the blues, shall we? Because the blues are tricky, but there are so many great choices for blues, and it's really hard not to, have several blues in there. Now, if I was gonna, I probably, going back to the yellows really quick, I probably will add a Quin Gold. And if I do add the Quin Gold, I haven't decided yet, right? Because obviously my Aussie Red is one of my favorites by Daniel Smith. So let me know if you know anything about Aussie Red being not a good light fast color, aside from what they say online. because I'm finding that these separate tests are kind of coming up with different results. So I like Aussie Red, and I really, really like the Quinn Gold. Now the Quinn Gold by Core is really, really nice, but a little more difficult to control. So I will probably go with the Quinn Gold either by Schmincke or by Danielle Smith. Both are excellent. Although I can say this, Roman Schmal has a pretty interesting Quinn Gold that kind of lit my fire. It was really, really nice. And remember when we tested it, it was just a beautiful, beautiful color. So we'll go back to that later if we have more room. But for right now, let's go through the blues. So for blues, in my personal collection, I have all of these. There's some greener blues, there's the Prussians, the indigos, the Payne's grays. And by the way, somebody asked me the other day, what's the difference between Payne's gray and neutral? I would have to say the big difference is that Payne's gray tends to be a blue mix, right? Where neutral tends to be, it's kind of like a mix of everything, right? Like you can get a neutral just by mixing whatever's on your palette all together, and you kind of get this gray shade, right? And that's just the neutral. They do sell neutrals, and I believe I have neutrals in several colors. Like I have my Sennelier neutral, which is absolutely beautiful. It's a great neutral, and it is kind of like a, here, I have it right here for you. I wouldn't consider them to be in the blue category, because see, neutral is just kind of like a mix of a lot. Like this neutral is made up of PR122, PB60, and PBK7. But honestly, you will get a similar neutral just by mixing whatever's in your palette together. If I had a dirty palette around here, I would just do that for you, but maybe we'll do it later if we end up with one. So that's why a lot of master watercolor artists, they just use some basics all the time, and then they mix neutrals, and so their art is mostly neutral in the background, which is just, you know, a mix of whatever they used on the last painting, starting out everything, and then they throw in some colors in there, which is pretty predictable, I must say. But hey, if it works, why fix it? So let's start with ultramarine, because I feel like every single palette must have an ultramarine, right? Because without an ultramarine, you really can't get some of those beautiful greens that you need. And at the same time, you need, you know, one of your blues to be a different shade too. So like we either go with like a phthalo or a cobalt or a cerulean, but ultra I always need. Now there's two types of ultramarine. There's like Ultramarine Finest by Schmincke, which is non-granulating, and you have ultramarine, like French ultramarine by Winsor Newton, that is granulating or heavily granulating colors. Like I'm trying to think of one of my favorites. French Ultra by Roman Schmal is actually a beautiful color and really granulating. I happen to love this one actually, and you can see there's a star by it. Ultramarine Deep by Sennelier is a favorite of mine. For the non-granulating ones, I don't believe this one is granulating. It doesn't even look like it here. But Schmincke French Ultra is probably what I use the most, and that is granulating. So the reason why I kind of like will choose, if I can only take one, I'm going to take the granulating color, and that is going to be between these two. The Schmincke French Ultra number 493 and the French Ultra in Roman Schmal 221. Both are beautiful. I really can't go wrong with either one. So right now it's basically just going to be whichever one I have on hand and can pull out and put into this container, right? Because gosh, guys, they're just really ultramarines. They're exquisite, and I don't think either one of them will disappoint you at all. So let's grab the Schmincke one, and that is, I think here, yeah, $4.93. Yep. So this is the one I'm going to choose for now. And then the Sennelier Ultra Deep is also a gorgeous color, and I want to show you the difference because they are so similar, but not. Like if you look really closely here, you can see the two. So these are my two ultimate favorites, the Ultra Deep in Sennelier and the French Ultra. I love these two for two different reasons. They're slightly different shades, and they probably are made of different pigments too. I haven't looked it up, but from the collection, these are the two ultras that I would choose. But we're going to put the Schmincke one in here for now. As far as a cobalt blue, I believe cobalt blue is such a great mixing color, and it's really hard not to have one. So if I were going to choose a cobalt, you can see I have several of them available to me. So I have Winsor Newton cobalt, which is a beautiful color. I have the Roman Schmal Cobalt Blue Deep, which is also a gorgeous, gorgeous deep color. The Cobalt Blue by Roman Schmal, which I tend to reach for more than anything else these days. So there's a star next to it. Daniel Smith Cobalt Blue is a tried and tested favorite. It is a little bit lighter than the Roman Schmal, and I tend to reach for the Roman Schmal because it's a little bit brighter and it's got more texture in the Roman Schmal. And it's funny because the Daniel Smith one I used to use all the time. It was like my mainstay. Cobalt Blue Light by Schmincke is also a great, beautiful color, kind of really in comparison to the Cobalt Blue by Daniel Smith. That is supposedly granulating, but I don't think it granulates that much, to tell you the truth. I haven't seen it nearly as much as the Roman Schmal. Then the Schmincke Cobalt Blue Hue, actually a very safe cobalt, and I really do love it. It's beautiful. It's got some really beautiful tones to it. But again, it's not as much of a mass tone as this Roman Schmal one. So it's really between the Roman Schmal Cobalt Blue Deep and the Roman Schmal Cobalt Blue. Now let me tell you how I'm going to make this decision. We're going to mix some of the yellows with it. So let's get my, whoops. Make sure I have enough room here. So let's get my Roman Schmal Cobalt Blue Deep and the Roman Schmal Cobalt Blue. We're going to put our ultramarine there. This is the first breaking the cherry on the Frazier box. Look at that. Okay. So, oops, we forgot to wet these. Just putting a couple drops just to get them wet. Cobalt Blue Deep, Cobalt Blues. Okay. Let's put this over on the side for a second. So just to challenge the mix, we're going to take a nice fluffy brush. We're going to take some lemon yellow. It'd be nice when I get these all fixed in so that they don't move around. Get enough on the brush. Move it into a palette, just so you can refer back to it when you need to. And I'm just going to paint a nice block of color here. Okay. And a second block of color here. Then a half block of color next to them. Okay. There we go. Now we're going to take the cobalt blue, just the standard cobalt blue, and I'm going to paint full strength here, which is still kind of warming up, but look at how much color just came out that first time. Just going to blend it right on the page so that it's nice and mixed up. So I haven't used this in a little bit. Make sure I got nice mass tone here. Let's put some in our palette. And then we're going to paint the other half. Mix this with a little water. And see how it mixes on paper. So you see the beautiful shade of green that it's coming through. And this is just the first, like a brief test. There's more testing to do. This is just the first little half. This is just a basic, like, let's mix them on paper and see if they explode into each other, you know, what's going on, how do they handle each other. Nothing too exciting, just a really nice mix. They didn't overcome each other like you see a lot of times, you know. Now let's take the Cobalt Blue Deep. Completely different color, right? Now you can see it probably. Maybe if I come closer. So the Cobalt Blue Deep by Roman Schmal is a more, it doesn't look as blue as the Cobalt. The Cobalt Blue Deep looks like it's got a little bit of like a purple undertone to it. So right there on that first test right there, just from looking at this, I know I'm not going to choose this one. I know I'm definitely going to go with the more blue, but I just still want to see what the test is. So see, like during the testing, you're going to find properties when you do a nice big swatch of the two laying next to each other. And then you start playing and mixing them together to see what on your palette is going to make something else. You can see right now that although Cobalt Blue Deep is beautiful, it's not got the strength that the other one has. And it's got so much granulation in it that it's actually kind of streaking a bit with the yellow. So they don't really love each other really well. And I'm not getting the kind of deeper green that I was hoping for. So now I'm going to mix these two in my palette over here. And we're going to be able to now see the deeper shades of green that I'm going to get. So I've got this nice, kind of like a cascade green. Add a little more yellow. And I've got a nice bright like yellow spring green or like a May green. And then there's lots of shades in between this, of course. Really beautiful. So you can see even these lighter shades of this color are really, really nice. And that's how I kind of come to my decisions when I'm trying to see about choosing colors, you know? So right off the bat, the two that I picked, there's a no-brainer that this is the better cobalt. And I probably at some point will test this cobalt against other cobalts. But for now, let's just go with it and be happy with it. And when we get down the road a little bit in further testing with other colors, we can see if it holds water. You know what I mean? Okay, we'll put that one back. So this process, I don't know, I don't often go through this process, but it's kind of fun to do it every once in a while. And the Frazier Price box of everything that I've gotten has kind of spurred it on for me a little bit. So for me personally, I always have to have a cerulean. And you guys ask me a lot about cerulean. Now, there are two different ceruleans that I use, and I think that that's why you get really confused. Sometimes you'll see me use this cerulean, which is the Cerulean Mission Gold, which really shouldn't be called just cerulean. It should be called Helio Cerulean, because as you can see, it's very much like the Helio Cerulean by Schmincke. So when I do mention that I'm using Cerulean, it's not that I'm lying. It's just that that's what it's called by Mission Gold. So I can't really call it Helio Cerulean unless I say, oh yeah, it's the Mission Gold Cerulean that looks like Helio Cerulean by Schmincke. See what I mean? Sapphire Blue is one of my newest favorites. Really beautiful, but I still don't feel like it replaces the Helio Cerulean for me. I still really love it, and I tend to reach for this so much that I'm just going to go ahead and take it easily into my palette. I'm going to show you how beautiful this color actually mixes with things like lemon yellow. So, oops. Let me grab a little more of my lemon yellow here. And I didn't even pre-wet this. Look at that craziness. Can you see that? Can you see how beautiful that is? Look at that nuttiness. It's like my favorite color, right? And then when we mix it with the yellow. Look at these beautiful greens. Really, really bright greens. And you're going to be like, what do you use those bright greens for? Well, they make amazing base colors for other layers because it's a really clear and clean color. So as I kind of run this out here, I'm going to show you. So now I would take like a little bit of the cobalt blue. And you can see adding cobalt blue, how beautiful we can get. Isn't that beautiful? So they work so well together, and that's why I choose certain colors like I do. I love the way they work. Okay, so there's that. And then if you want to take the ultramarine, that's so luscious, right? I can additionally pull ultramarine through here, and it gives me just a little extra texture and warmth without really competing with anything. Isn't that amazing? It actually does even a great job, you know, like if you were going to do a sky or something like that. So this is just a rough mix of colors together. You're going to be like, what is she painting? It's nothing. It's just showing you how these all can work together and how beautiful they are. Now let's go to that cad yellow that I had, because I want to paint this over here, and I can show you how it mixes with this palette so well and just gives me even more play and different tones, you know? This is how I get like some of those olive greens, mixing the cad yellow with the ultramarine. And you get like beautiful deep green shades that are so nice. You can even, dare I say, add a little bit of blue to it, and you'll get additional shades, more like cascadey kind of green shades. And then if you want to brighten it up, a tad of helio, and now you're getting something even different. Some of those ocean shades, really, really pretty. So you can see how I could go back and forth with this all day long, just kind of tapping on these three. And that's why I choose them, because, you know, if you're going to take only a few with you, look at the range that I'm getting already, you know. Another good choice is the Cerulean by Winsor Newton. It's the only like true cerulean blue that is granulating and that just is really stable. I find that the Cerulean Blue Chromium by Daniel Smith is really nice, but not the most stable color. At times, the Winsor Newton is way more stable and just performs really, really well. So if you're looking for a light blue cerulean, then that's a really good one to get. Nothing wrong with the Daniel Smith Chromium. It's really nice, you know. Also, Cobalt Azure by Schmincke is a really beautiful color, and that's in that range, that kind of like lighter blue. If you want something a little more opaque, they have a mountain blue that's really pretty. But ultimately, Heliocerulean just doesn't, you know, I can't beat that. If I have room, I'll probably go and put also a phthalo blue green shade is awesome. Phthalo Sapphire is beautiful. I mean, all of these phthalos are just amazing. Even the phthalo blue by Roman Schmal, it totally compares so well. So for the price range, the phthalo blue red shade, $2.25 by Roman Schmal, when that is at like $3, just buy them up for the full pans. It's a beautiful color, and it really performs so well. So I'm going to show it to you actually right now. Let's see if I can set this down somewhere where I won't ruin it. But it re-wets so quick. And look at that beautiful quality. It's gorgeous. Nothing wrong with that. It is just a stunning cerulean. So they're phthalo blue. It's called phthalo blue. I don't know why I call it cerulean. I tend to call this color phthalo blue, $2.25 by Roman Schmal. Amazing, beautiful color. That would be my choice if I didn't have anything else. Actually, it's just so stunning. How does it look next to the other one? The, yeah, it's really pretty. The Schmincke is just a little brighter. So a bit brighter. But one's Helio Cerulean and one's phthalo blue, you know. So they're not really the same. Okay. What else am I looking at here? Paris blue is really pretty. I just got this one actually, and I haven't really used it yet, so it's unfair to judge it. I do tend to like having a Prussian blue, and my all-time favorite Prussian blue is a Winsor Newton Prussian blue, but I can tell you this. The Cerulean makes a beautiful Prussian blue. So whatever's available to you, in my opinion, you can't go wrong with the Winsor Newton Prussian, the Roman Schmal Prussian, or the Cerulean Prussian. All three are gorgeous. The Daniel Smith Prussian blue, not so much. Don't really love it. And the Schmincke Prussian 492, don't love it. I love these three though. The Cerulean 318, the Roman Schmal Prussian, and the Winsor Newton Prussian. So I am going to add a Prussian blue, if I can find one, in my kit here. Let's see. I could just add the one from, I know I have it. I think I should have a large one somewhere here. Of course, I won't be able to find it because I've got too much going on in this. So we'll have to stop the camera and find this later. But I believe it's in here somewhere. Oh, I found it. Winsor Newton. No, this is the Schmincke one. No. Okay. I don't want to waste your time looking for it. I will find it. I'll stop the camera and find it in a little bit. And then indigo. If I were going to choose an indigo, the Winsor Newton indigo is gorgeous. It's right here. It's right next to the Winsor Newton Prussian. I don't think I can really improve on those. Schmincke has a gorgeous Prussian green, though. If you want a green shade, it is so, so pretty. I love it. And, oh, God, these are so pretty, too. Okay, never mind. So, Winsor Newton. Let's get my little pen. And, oops. I have wet paint everywhere, so I can't set this down. So my Prussian Winsor Newton, my indigo Winsor Newton. Definitely those two are at the top of my list. Roman Schmal and Cerulean Prussian. I don't really love Mission Gold Indigo because it's so black, but the Schmincke green one is just beautiful, even though it's not really in the same category. The Schmincke Indigo, it's okay. It's not as nice as the Winsor Newton one, though. And for Payne's Gray, you know, I'm going to go with either the Schmincke Payne's Gray, because it's like got this really beautiful kind of bluey tone, or the Cerulean Payne's Gray 703, because it's got a very neutral tone. I don't really love most of the Payne's Gray. I would rather use Prussian or indigo, to tell you the truth. But I think for this, I'm going to go with Schmincke Payne's Gray if I'm going to add one. For cobalt, these cobalts, if I have room in my palette, what would I choose? So of these bluey green colors, these bluey green shades, the choices would be Ultramarine Turquoise by Daniel Smith, Phthalo Turquoise, doesn't really go, Cerulean Turquoise, which is the Cerulean Phthalo Turquoise. That is like my favorite color. I can't stand not having it. So that one's going to win out. Helio Turquoise is not really, it's more of a blue shade. The Lunar Blue is beautiful, and so is Mayan Blue, but I've heard things about them being fugitive. So I'm going to wait on those until the tests are out. So if you're going to like have a palette where you're going to keep the art, I would maybe think twice about these, as beautiful as they are, and make sure that you check to see about the light fastness, because you can easily go with like the Schmincke Deep Sea Green and kind of like darken it up and add some helio to it and probably get closer to the Mayan Blue. Yeah, I would be careful, because I think it's the I think it might be the cobalt that is unstable, perhaps in the lunar blue. I don't really know. I haven't heard why they think it is. I used to use this all the time though, but then I heard they didn't really perform well in private light fast testing. So Daniel Smith has been kind of coming up short there with me. Cobalt turquoise by Winsor Newton is a pretty color, but not something I would use much. I really would probably go with Deep Sea Green by Schmincke if I was going to add something, and that's a super granulating color if I were going to add something in this range. Other than that, the phthalo turquoise, I'm always going to choose phthalo turquoise. This is my favorite color to paint with. I love it. It's stunning. And for these, which I think every girl needs a little cobalt turquoise in her life, I think you have to look at maybe manganese blues by Daniel Smith is nice. The manganese blue by Winsor Newton is okay. It's a little light. Cobalt teal is not my favorite by Daniel Smith. It's kind of like Sleeping Beauty a little bit. I don't love it. Cobalt teal by Quar is nice, but a little powdery. Cobalt turquoise by Schmincke, definitely my favorite cobalt. I love this one. So I would say that if I were going to choose, I'm going to just have to go with this one again because I love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful, stable cobalt turquoise color. You guys can tell me if you know anything about it or heard any fugitive issues. There is a cobalt sea blue that looks just like it by Roman Schmal. So if you are interested in Roman Schmal paints, then these are almost identical. They're so close and they both paint so beautifully. So you can't go wrong with either one. You do have to, I think, get this on open stock because it's not in the wood box set, but it is a beautiful color. And I couldn't really tell a huge difference between the two. I'm just going to put the Schmincke in here because I have it on hand. So there's my blues. So blues it's kind of like an extensive thing, right? I'm going to leave my additional choices until later because I'm filling up my palette kind of fast. But at this point, I'm kind of looking at, really just removing these and adding more colors because I don't personally use these little water jugs. I usually have water with me if I'm going to travel or go anywhere. And I feel like this is absolutely useless for me in the way I paint. This is more like something I could crack open and use as a mixing area in here and then like have a bunch more colors. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of looking at options of maybe finding something like this to put in this side, maybe ordering it. And, or perhaps I have something on hand already, to put in there. But for right now, I just feel like this is where I can put a lot of extra colors. Oh, I forgot there's a magnet on this one. Ooh, so there's a magnet, so I can't slip it, but I could put it in that side. So that gives me like so much more room, right? So then I can like start throwing in the phthalos and the helios and all the stuff. All right, so that's my blue choices. That's where we are now with regards to this next little segment in this series. Which ones would you choose? I would love to hear from you guys so far. The next one, I'm going to go through the pinks and reds, don't forget, and we also have convenience greens coming up. So there's a lot more colors to choose. And if I have room, then I'm going to go, of course, through like the earth tones like natural sienna, Italian burnt sienna, because we've got to have some of those, right? The caput mortem is also beautiful. There's, oh my gosh, there's so many. Just don't get me started. So we have lots to do in this series, but it's kind of fun because we go through them, right? And let me know, this time I actually painted these on film, but I completely lost my laptop. My really beautiful laptop has finally died, and it took my blue sample swatches with it. So I do not have video painting these, which I had done for you so that you could see how they went down. But I think you by now will probably trust my choices. And in other videos, I did test these out and swatch them on there. So you'll see that. In any case, this would have been a hella long video if I would have swatched all these out for you. I think this probably did just as good. Any case, have a good day, and I hope you are enjoying this series. Please leave a comment below and subscribe if you have not yet. Have a wonderful day and happy painting.